So far, the latest major has seen the AUG's usage shoot up from not much at all to being more popular than the M4s, which up until this point had been the CT rifles of choice. What happened? I compared them in depth way back in 2014. I concluded that the AUG is accurate from a greater distance, it penetrates armour better, and at a close range can kill helmeted enemies in one hit, unlike other CT rifles. Mastering the spray pattern will make it more accurate than the M4s are, and spraying with it fires 667 bullets a minute, 10% faster than the M4 A1S can. And yet, despite these benefits, until 2019 the M4A4 and M4 A1S had been considerably more popular. If asked why you think that is, you'd probably just list off their advantages. They deal better damage against unarmoured enemies. You move a bit faster when using them. The spray pattern is smaller and thus easier to learn and control. And it takes less time to deploy and to reload them. And they cost less. These benefits were enough reason for almost everybody to stick to using the M4s. Until now. Although I tested them 5 years ago, since then the weapons themselves haven't changed that much. The biggest change the AUG has received is the recent drop in price from $3,300 down to $3,150 last October. And that doesn't sound like a big change to me. That's less than the cost of a flashbang, and it appeared to transform an almost unused weapon into the next big thing. It's still more expensive than the M4s. It's not like people saved money by getting the AUG instead. It could just be that players' rifle preferences truly are that price sensitive. But this video will investigate what other factors could have contributed to this change in rifle preference. Most of this will be speculation. I don't think there's a way of knowing for sure. But I still think a lot can be learned from investigating. Long before the M4 vs AUG battle was taken seriously, another question split the community in two. And that's the M4 versus the M4. Since the M4 A1S was introduced in 2013, it has spawned endless debates over which M4 is the best. Over on HLTV, it shows the most used weapons for each year. I ripped the M4's and AUG's data from this and compared them over time. Now this isn't entirely true. I don't think the AUG's usage in 2014 or the M4 A1S's in 2019 was actually 0%. It was simply low enough not to show in the original pie chart, so rather than 0, consider this low enough not to be one of the most popular choices. The M4A4 is still being used a bit more than the AUG if you look at all the results for 2019 so far. But if we only look at the stats for the latest major, you can see the story is very different. This could just be an anomaly. But I don't think it is. If the AUG is suddenly good enough for the best teams in the world in the most influential tournament of the year, I expect to see it being used elsewhere as well. Starting now. Comparing historical data, the M4A4 has always been the more dull, consistent choice, forever costing the same old $3,100. The M4 A1S, on the other hand, has been changed quite a lot and has seen its price vary from between $2,900 and $3,200. I don't think the AUG was even a factor in these changes. The adjustments to the M4 A1S were done to keep its usage balanced with that of the M4 A4s. Since 2015, the prices of both have been the same, and apart from the tap buff and spray nerf adjustment in 2016, the stats have remained more or less the same for years. And yet, despite this, players' preferences between them have still changed, perhaps due to changes in the prices and stats of other weapons in the game, changes to the game's economy, which strategies are in fashion, and so on. Lots of things could determine which M4 is the most popular. It's just that they themselves haven't changed. Likewise, a large part of why the AUG is now the favourite could just be down to these other factors. The $150 drop in price being enough to kickstart the avalanche of change, to get the ball of progress rolling, to usher in a controversial new world for global offensive. In short, I think the $150 drop was the straw that broke the camel's back. Even before this, the AUG was better than we thought, or at least better than public opinion made it out to be. It's not like it wasn't questioned. Countless people asked on forum posts why the AUG wasn't more popular. They have always been followed up with a list of the M4 strengths, and it's simply been left at that. Now that the AUG's more popular and is used by pros, it's easy to look back with hindsight and to laugh at how blind we all were. But weapon balance has always been more than cold, hard facts and figures. To put it politely, there's always been an artistic element to the weapon meta. To put it not so politely, it's a popularity contest and we're all like sheep, following the crowd. I think that we, as players, aren't as objective as we like to think we are. A sunk cost fallacy is where your decisions are influenced by the time you've already invested into it. While the AUG may have been better for some occasions, Perhaps we as players are unwilling to let our mastery of the M4s go to waste. All those hours we've spent practicing it and learning its nuances. Plus, why learn something like an AUG when you'd seldom pick that off a fallen enemy? Why ruin your short-term success by switching to a weapon that would take time to learn, and the uncertainty that comes with that? I suspect veterans of the game stuck with the M4s out of familiarity, and popularity has led to new players adopting the same preference. And while the M4s have forever been associated with good players, it's perhaps thanks to Call of Duty that the AUG and its scope have been associated with noobs. Maybe this was enough to prevent change until now. Now that players better than ourselves are discovering the AUG and winning with it, it's no longer seen as a newbie weapon. I've certainly seen its use in matchmaking boom since the start of the major. I sometimes wonder how different Counter-Strike would be if in an alternate reality, or if pro teams from an entirely remote country were to suddenly compete against everybody else. Unfortunately, the Click Empire can't fund such an experiment. But what if we gave CSGO to a remote tribe somewhere and let them master it? I wouldn't be surprised if their tactics, map and weapon preferences ended up being completely different to that of the rest of the world's. If based only on the latest version of the game and with no past biases, outside influences or historical information to influence their choice. I'm not saying they'd be better. They'd probably develop their own biases. But they'd be interesting to see. I don't think we should be too embarrassed about the AUG situation. A lot of factors are at play, and people have done perfectly well with the M4s up until now. It perhaps requires a team at the highest level of play to win with the AUG to wake the rest of the player base up. Moving forward, we should acknowledge that the AUG is a decent weapon, and so as not to look so silly in the future, maybe consider the possibility that the current weapon usage might not represent how good they actually are. I'm fully expecting dualies to dominate eco rounds soon. Another thing about the AUG adoption interests me, and that's Valve's decision to lower its price. They could have done anything to it. They could have buffed its stats, nerfed the M4s, or they could have just done nothing, leaving the game as it has been for years. But something made them drop the AUG's price, and I think it was to test CSGO's fanbase, to see if just a small price drop was needed to make an ignored weapon viable. Something tells me they didn't expect quite so many players to jump to it so quickly, so I'm excited to see what happens next. They'll wait until after the major, no doubt, but I would be surprised if there wasn't further tweaking to the rifle's balance before the second major of 2019. The only question is, what will it be? The M4s have been a fundamental part of Counter-Strike since the beginning. Something doesn't seem right about them falling out of favour so quickly, no matter how exciting this change to the meta feels right now. But at the same time, something tells me that the game can't return to how it was before. Even if the AUG was to return to $3,300, I think many people would continue using it, now it's had the chance to be used, and for its strengths to be known. I wonder if maybe the AUG's success will encourage them to drop the prices of other underused weapons to keep things fresh for the major, and to reward the teams willing to take the risks. There may be other great weapons lurking within Counter-Strike's arsenal. All it might take is a small financial incentive to encourage players to give them a chance. You know what else dropped in price when the AUG did? It was the SG-553, which is kind of like the Terrorist's version of the AUG. But this weapon costs even less, just $2,750. And yet it hasn't seen the same boost in popularity that the AUG has been enjoying. Using the scope on an AUG or SG reduces recoil and improves accuracy further. But these traits help CTs in particular, who generally know where enemies will be coming from and can use a scoped weapon to lock it down. Maybe this is why the Terrorists still greatly favour the AK. Hopefully I've made it clear throughout this video that I don't know for sure. Because I don't. I still remember back in 2014 when Cloud9 used the AUG on Cobble, and thinking that maybe we were witnessing the start of something great. But we weren't. And after all this, is there any proof that using the AUG has made maps more CT-sided? Surely that would be the real test to see how good it is. I'm not proud of how this turned out, but it shows what it needs to. As an example, here are two bars showing the number of CT Terrorist rounds won on Mirage. The first bar shows it for the London Major last year, back when the M4 was the favourite CT weapon. You can see from the blue area, representing CT round wins, that they won about 50% of the time. Now onto the second bar for Mirage, representing this current major in Katowice. So far, the blue bar here is bigger, meaning that CTs won more than 50% of the rounds played on Mirage. The win rate for CTs has jumped up, which could be something to do with the AUG giving them an advantage. All of the other maps have done the same, meaning that CTs are doing better in this current major than they were in the last. Oh, apart from on Dust 2, where the CT win rate has gone down massively. Thanks Dust 2, ruining an otherwise clean conclusion. I thought we were friends. Apart from Dust 2, all of the maps have become more CT-sided. This could be a sign that the AUG makes it easier for CTs to win. Or it could be another factor. Or it could just be random chance, what with how small the sample sizes are. As an example, for this major, so far only 2 matches have been played on cash. In conclusion, after decades of the M4 dominating the game, a small price drop to the AUG has made it the new weapon of choice. It has been used extensively by pros in this major, and now the world can see that it's a good weapon when in the right hands. I expect the AUG to become the favourite in other tournaments and in matchmaking from now on. After this major, I expect Valve to roll out an update to try and bring balance back. I have nothing against the AUG being used, but it does feel like too big a change to the buying meta and map balance, and in too short a time. I don't think Valve was wrong to drop the AUG's price, but knowing what we do now, I think it would be wrong to keep it how it is. But until then, I suggest you sit back and enjoy the major. The M4-some has ended. The AUG-asm has begun.
Counter-terrorists win.